Hello there, my name's Brandon and I make pictures out of tiny squares. And this week I received this beautiful 64x64 pixel display from Divoom. And this is called the Pixoo-64, and it's actually the largest offered in their family of LED smart displays. This one's really exciting because there's now the possibility to see some decent sized artwork in this really nice presentational format. And right out of the box there's a great selection of community designs that you can look at, but I'd like to design something of my own with this sizing in mind. My plan is to reinterpret a stage from the first Mega Man game into a fit for the Pixoo-64. The original resolution here is 256 by 224 pixels, so simply cropping out a square 64 area wouldn't allow much to be seen, and resizing the original would degrade the artwork as well. Instead, I'm going to redraw pieces inspired by the original, but that are actually redesigned to intentionally fit the 64x64 canvas. And luckily I've got a head start on this one because last year I made this tiny Mega Man sprite as an exercise during my Mega Man sprite analysis video. And it already looks like a good scale within the 64 pixel canvas, especially for being able to retain a bit of character to it at that sizing. And I'd even done a little buster pose at that time too, so I think it'll just be a great place to start. The first thing I'm doing is making a run cycle by referencing the run cycle of the original. The sprite style I've created here forgoes the black outline in order to save space, and instead uses a higher color count to achieve separation within the form. This stylistic choice came in handy because I can also use the brighter color to accentuate the limbs up front, while those further away can be in a darker shade. I also love the efficiency of this run cycle here, because it's a 4-frame loop that only requires 3 unique poses, since the same middle frame is used as the pass-through pose connecting those 2 extremes both times. Of course, he's also going to require a jump pose, and another set for climbing ladders. And again, I found my way through those poses by adapting the original frames into my style. What's nice about the climbing sprite is that it's only a single frame, and that one gets mirrored to give the action of leading with the left or the right. I've positioned all the movements to a common origin, and then grouped them into a folder so that I can bump the full set around together as I animate, and then I'll just trigger the pose that I need for that given moment. The Pixoo-64 accepts up to 92 frames for animation files, so I'll have to be pretty tight with the durations of each movement, but I think it'd be fun to show him doing a lot of these familiar actions rather than just running straight through to save frame count. To also keep the room designs tidy and efficient, I'm tiling them out using an 8x8 grid, much like how the original is built, except there won't be the same density of walls and platforms here. With the limited frame count, there also needs to be a pretty simple path for him to follow. So in this first room, I'm going to have Mega Man jump up 2 levels and then climb a ladder to the next room. I'm picking colors from the original and using those to redraw the smaller scale tiling. The biggest change for this kind of thing was the simpler repeat pattern of the brick tiling, but more importantly, this change ensured that the size of the bricks maintained scale with the smaller character sprite. Okay, so that's the first 64x64 room. And I'm just going to step back for a second to show that the animation trick for the remaining rooms is going to be that the full map is designed on a canvas of 128 by 128. What's going to happen is that we'll actually be scrolling the entire level through that 64 pixel viewport in the corner. So when he moves up the ladder to the second room, that'll actually be the background sliding down into frame. And then to go over to the last room, that'll slide left to come into view that way. So that's kind of the roadmap for the rest of the design. And with the second room, I'm going to have the door that leads to the boss. Now, of course, in the actual game, this generally leads to that ominous hallway before the boss room. But in order to save frame count, this is going to open up and then we'll just be straight in the boss room from there, which is going to ensure that there are enough frames left over to have a small fight sequence too. For the door animation, I've created a sprite of the door open just a little bit, and then another where it's open almost all the way. When those are paired with the fully closed and fully open doorway, the result is something that can occur over a 6-frame action, with transition time in between for Mega Man to run through, of course. I'm building up the boss room using the existing tile designs, and compared to the original, I've placed the stage on the right side so that upon entering the room, Mega Man is already in a position to get a jump shot in. And by the way, I guess I didn't mention it, but this is Cutman's stage from the first Mega Man game. And for his design, I'm recoloring the Mega Man sprite, and in matching with that sprite style, I've introduced some additional shade colors as well. I've added the black outline around the blades though because they become a projectile for his attack, and I felt it helped their readability in that animation. This was another simple and efficient one since that piece is just rotated 90 degrees to give that spinning effect. and I found that a 6-frame loop felt about right for having that out and back motion. All right, to get started with the full animated sequence, as I alluded to earlier, I'm moving that entire group of Mega Man sprites along, and then I double back to have them flip through the run cycle appropriately. I found that moving about 4 pixels per frame was a decent enough distance for each step, and I used 3 frames to have him hop up onto the ledge. And then to have him turn around, I copied and mirrored that entire group of sprites to generate the left-facing sprites. The rest follows a similar rhythm up to the ladder, and at this point, the sprite animation will freeze in place and the whole level will move down to reveal the next room. So I'm going to select all my grouped assets and shift them down over the next few frames. Now, the Photoshop timeline has a feature to tween an animation based on a given start and end position, but I'm just doing this manually instead because I want to keep track of the exact spacing for myself. And I'm also inserting extra frames on either end to kind of accelerate into and decelerate out of this scrolling movement. Up ahead in the boss room, I'm putting together a short and simple fight sequence, which is them pretty much just taking turns on their attacks. But it's a nice place to show off that little jump shot for Mega Man. And then also I found that a single white frame worked really well for when Cutman takes a hit. After the quote-unquote boss fight there, I had about 10 frames left before hitting my limit of 92, and I used those to recycle the animation, where Mega Man will beam into and out of the level. So that'll provide kind of a nice seamless loop, although that'll be kind of a crazy Groundhog Day situation for him now that I think about it, but nonetheless. And the other addition here is that I'm adding a couple enemy sprites. Since Mega Man's movements are already predetermined at this point, I'm just placing this turret to fire in the time between him passing through. And that way it actually, maybe just looks like it was a perfectly clean run anyway. All right, so with all this coming into place, let's go ahead and take a look at the final thing in all its glowing glory on the Pixoo frame. And since it's a brief animation, I'll let it loop a few times so that we can take it in. Here we go. All right, and I thought it'd just be fun to kind of show what's also happening behind the scenes with the background, since I mentioned that shifting on the canvas earlier. So basically what's happening here is that I've cropped the image to the 64 pixels of the bottom left corner, and then that gets exported as a GIF and loaded onto the Pixoo frame using the Divoom app. So I'd like to thank Divoom for inviting me to check this out, and I'll leave links below if you'd like to find out more about the Pixoo-64. So thank you for watching, and take care and keep it square.